Genius or tyrant, liberator or oppressor. Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that echoes through history, conjuring images of grandeur and controversy. In just 30 years, he rose from obscurity to command an empire, his ambition reshaping an entire continent. But at what cost? How would the world judge Napoleon today? Stay tuned as we unravel the enigma of one of history's most fascinating figures. Amidst the rugged beauty of Corsica, in 1769, a child was born who would one day command empires. Napoleon Bonaparte, raised in the aftermath of Corsican resistance to Genoese rule, grew up in an atmosphere charged with a spirit of defiance and nationalism. From an early age, Napoleon was marked by his Corsican heritage. At school in France, his accent and modest background isolated him from his peers, forging a sense of independence and a burning ambition within his young heart. Obsessed with history and strategy, Napoleon immersed himself in the tales of ancient heroes and military tactics. These early influences were not just escapism for a lonely boy, but the building blocks of a strategic mind that would later stun the world. As a teenager, Napoleon's military talents began to surface at the military academy in Brienne-le-Château. Here, amidst the rigors of military training, he dreamt not just of glory, but of reshaping the world. But outside the academy's walls, France was simmering with unrest. The old order was crumbling, and the ideas of liberty and revolution were in the air. It was a time of immense change, a time that demanded leaders with the vision and audacity to seize the reins of history. In these formative years, a complex character was forged, a blend of Corsican nationalism, personal ambition, and a fascination with historical greatness. These elements combined to create a young man uniquely suited to thrive in the turbulent times that lay ahead. As he stepped into adulthood, Napoleon was already a man apart, destined to leave an indelible mark on the world stage. But how would his early experiences shape his future rule? The answer lies in the unfolding drama of the French Revolution. As the fires of revolution engulfed France, a young Corsican officer saw opportunity amidst the chaos. Napoleon Bonaparte, now a man, was ready to make his mark on a nation in turmoil. In the early years of the revolution, Napoleon's brilliance as an artillery officer quickly became apparent. His first significant triumph came at the Siege of Toulon in 1793, where his strategy and courage turned the tide against the British-supported royalists. But it was not just his military prowess that was emerging. Napoleon displayed a shrewd understanding of politics and power, aligning himself with the revolutionaries while skillfully navigating the treacherous political landscape. Paris, 1795. The young general's ruthless efficiency came to the fore as he quashed a royalist uprising. His actions earned him fame, power, and a new nickname, the Little Corporal, reflecting both his stature and his growing influence in the military. As France's political climate shifted, Napoleon's star ascended. He became a symbol of French military prowess, his reputation growing with each success. Yet, his rapid rise also sowed seeds of envy and mistrust among the political elite. 1796. Napoleon took command of the French army in Italy, a turning point in his career. Here, he demonstrated not just military genius, but also a unique style of leadership. He inspired his men, shared their hardships, and turned a demoralized army into an unstoppable force. Through a series of stunning victories, he did not just defeat the enemy, he also won the hearts of his soldiers. His letters and proclamations, filled with grand visions and patriotic fervor, were as much weapons as his cannons and muskets. In these tumultuous years, Napoleon emerged not just as a military leader, but as a figure of immense historical significance. His rise through the ranks mirrored the revolutionary upheaval of France, a man and a nation, both on a path to redefine the very concept of power and leadership. Masirel. With France still reeling from revolution, Napoleon's gaze turned towards Italy. In 1796, as the commander of the French army in Italy, he embarked on a campaign that would cement his status as one of history's greatest military commanders. In Italy, Napoleon's military genius shone brightly. He outmaneuvered and outwitted enemy forces, capturing vital territories and forcing the once dominant Austrians to the negotiating table. His victories were not just triumphs on the battlefield, but also masterclasses in diplomacy and strategy. Yet, it was more than military prowess. Napoleon's Italian campaign was a theater of propaganda. He carefully crafted his image as a liberator, winning over the local population and inspiring his troops with promises of glory and plunder. 1798 marked the beginning of a bold and ambitious venture, the Egyptian campaign. Napoleon's intent was to undermine British influence and establish French dominance in the eastern Mediterranean. But Egypt was more than a military conquest for Napoleon. It was a quest for knowledge, a bridge between the East and West. He brought scientists and scholars, revealing a fascination with the ancient world and a desire to understand cultures beyond Europe. However, the campaign in Egypt exposed the limits of Napoleon's reach. The defeat at the Battle of the Nile by the British Navy was a significant setback, stranding his army thousands of miles from home. This campaign, marked by initial triumphs but ultimate strategic failure, showed a different side of Napoleon. Here was a man willing to gamble, driven by a vision of a world reshaped by his will. But it also revealed his overreach and the challenges of extending his empire beyond Europe. In the sands of Egypt, the seeds of both greatness and hubris were sown. Napoleon returned to France not as a defeated general, but as a hero, his legend growing even in the face of setbacks. In the tumultuous aftermath of his Egyptian campaign, Napoleon returned to a France mired in political instability. It was a ripe moment for a decisive leader, and Napoleon, ever the opportunist, seized it. In the dramatic coup of 18 Brumaire in 1799, Napoleon, with a blend of charisma and force, overthrew the Directory. This marked the end of the French Revolution and the beginning of the Consulate, with Napoleon as the first consul. As the de facto ruler of France, Napoleon embarked on a series of sweeping reforms. He stabilized the economy, reformed education, and centralized the administration. But his most enduring legacy was the Napoleonic Code, a comprehensive set of laws that laid the groundwork for modern French legal systems and influenced jurisdictions worldwide. This code, while revolutionary in standardizing laws and promoting secularism and meritocracy, also reflected Napoleon's authoritarian streak. It restricted individual freedoms, like freedom of the press, and reinforced patriarchal authority in families. By 1804, Napoleon's ambition knew no bounds. In a grand ceremony, he crowned himself Emperor of the French, a moment of ultimate triumph. This act symbolized the complete transformation from a revolutionary general to a ruler with imperial ambitions. In this era, his consolidation of power would have been seen as a necessary step towards stabilizing a nation in chaos. But through modern lenses, this move can be viewed as a stark departure from revolutionary ideals, an embodiment of absolute power, and the birth of a new monarchy under the guise of revolutionary change. Napoleon's ascent to emperor not only solidified his power, but also set the stage for the turbulent Napoleonic Wars. It was a pivotal moment where ambition, power, and a vision for a new Europe converged. Emperor Napoleon's thirst for expansion plunged Europe into a series of conflicts unparalleled in scale and intensity, the Napoleonic Wars. Between 1803 and 1815, Europe became a chessboard for his grand strategic ambitions. Napoleon revolutionized military tactics with his speed, surprise, and decisive action. He mastered the art of maneuver warfare, often engaging larger enemy forces with a smaller, more agile army. His victories at Austerlitz and Jena are exemplars of his military genius. However, the scale of these wars meant unprecedented casualties, leaving a trail of destruction across Europe. The psychology of Napoleon's military pursuits, driven by a mix of ambition and a desire for legacy, mirrored the era's values of glory and conquest. Yet, in the modern context, such an approach might be seen as an aggressive pursuit of power, disregarding the immense human cost. In a strategic move to weaken Britain, his most steadfast opponent, Napoleon introduced the Continental system in 1806. This economic blockade was designed to isolate Britain from European trade, intending to cripple its economy. The results were mixed. While it initially disrupted British trade, the system also had unintended consequences for European economies, causing widespread hardship. It led to increased smuggling and strained relations between France and its allies. The Continental system reveals another facet of Napoleon's psychology, his tendency to enforce control and dominance, even at the expense of his own allies' economies. In today's globalized world, such economic warfare might be seen as a self-defeating strategy, highlighting the interconnectedness of nations and the complexities of international relations. As the Napoleonic Wars raged on, Europe was reshaped politically and socially. Napoleon's military brilliance was undeniable, but so were the consequences of his ambition. These wars were not just battles over territory. They were a struggle for a new European order, one envisioned and dominated by Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1812, Napoleon embarked on a campaign that would mark the beginning of his downfall, the invasion of Russia. Driven by a desire to subdue Russia's defiance against the Continental system, he assembled the largest army Europe had ever seen. But this campaign was fraught with miscalculations. Napoleon underestimated the vastness of the Russian terrain and the harshness of its climate. His vision of a quick victory dissolved into a grueling war of attrition. As the Russian army retreated, they employed a scorched earth policy, burning crops and villages, leaving nothing for the invading army. The Russian winter then unleashed its fury, decimating Napoleon's forces, not through battle, but starvation, cold, and disease. The retreat from Moscow was a harrowing ordeal for the Grand Army. The once mighty force that had marched into Russia was reduced to a shadow of its former self. This campaign revealed a critical flaw in Napoleon's strategy: overreaching ambition, blind to practical realities. In modern terms, this campaign can be likened to the pitfalls faced by leaders who ignore ground realities in pursuit of grand ambitions. It serves as a stark reminder of the limits of military power and the catastrophic consequences of underestimating environmental and logistical challenges. The Russian campaign was more than a military defeat. It was a turning point. It shattered the myth of Napoleon's invincibility and set into motion a chain of events leading to his eventual downfall. It stands as a poignant testament to the perils of hubris and the unforgiving nature of overextension in warfare. In 1814, after a series of defeats and the loss of public support, Napoleon Bonaparte faced his first downfall. He was exiled to the small island of Elba, a ruler without an empire, reflecting on his rapid rise and fall. But Napoleon's story was far from over. In an astonishing turn of events, in 1815, he escaped Elba and returned to France, igniting a period known as the 100 Days. His charisma and reputation alone were enough to rally the nation once again under his banner. This resurgence, however, was short-lived. At the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon met his final defeat. This battle, marked by strategic errors and the tenacity of his adversaries, sealed his fate. Napoleon was then exiled to St. Helena, a remote island in the Atlantic. Here, in stark contrast to his former glory, he spent his last years in introspection, writing his memoirs and pondering his legacy. His final exile paints a picture of a once great leader, now reduced to a lonely existence, far from the world he once dominated. Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that left an indelible mark on history. His legacy is a complex tapestry of military genius, administrative reform, and an unquenchable thirst for power. He reshaped Europe, redrew its borders, and introduced legal and administrative reforms that endure to this day. But how do we view this colossal figure today? Is he the quintessential military genius and reformer who brought order out of chaos? Or is he a power-hungry tyrant whose ambition brought untold suffering? His story is a reminder of the dual nature of power, its ability to drive progress, and its potential to unleash destruction. It challenges us to reflect on the complexities of leadership and the fine line between ambition and overreach. As we ponder the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, we must ask ourselves, how do we measure the greatness of a leader? And what lessons can we draw from their triumphs and failures? In the end, perhaps history is not just about the figures who shape it, but also about the questions they leave behind.